The gospel it's one of these things, like, when the readings are, sometimes in Lent can be so long, and they can be so rich with different pieces, like this one is rich in many different ways. There's little nuggets that John gives that sets the tone. It gives you an insight on the scene. Like the fact that it says it was about noon. It tells you something right away. Because remember, this is Israel, the Middle East. It's a relatively hot climate. Who's going to grab water at noon? Most of the people who have done it, they're doing it early in the morning when it's still cool. The fact that she's coming alone by herself at noon gives you a sense of who this, without having to reveal too much, gives you a sense. There's something about this woman that sets her apart from the rest of the community, whether she feels isolated already. We get a little insight. Okay, there's some distinction between Jews and Samaritans. If this is your first entry point. And even the conversation talking about living water, there's already within Judaism and even in that region, what they understood to be living water was moving water, because in order to do purification rituals required moving water, which required water so they would refer to that as living water that moved, not still, so that's the difference between a river and a lake. A river would be living water, a lake would not be. It's within their ideas and their lexicon, so they already have these kind of things, but Jesus takes them and moves them in a different direction. And so when we see this meeting between Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well, where he's offering her living water, first it's like everything else. She has in her mind what he thinks she means. But as we go deeper into it, we get a better sense of what he's really getting at. What he's really getting at is it's this living water. It's water that satisfies not just physical thirst, but the deep spiritual thirst of the human heart. It's a reminder that we all have desire. Different desires that God has made us for. But he's the ultimate fulfillment of them. Nothing else in this world will satisfy. And so this encounter is rich with lessons for us as disciples, especially set within this Lenten season, because it's a season that's dedicated, it's inviting us to spiritual renewal and deeper conversion. In the first reading, we see the Israelites in the book of Exodus. They're facing thirst in the desert, crying out for God. And he provides water from the rock. And so similarly, the Samaritan woman experiences a spiritual thirst that can only be quenched by Christ. The season of Lent invites us to identify where our own lives are dry. The habits, the fears, maybe the sins that leave us spiritually parched. And to turn to Christ as the source of life. Jesus begins the conversation by meeting the woman where she is. You notice that? He meets her right there. No judgment, He's not saying curious you're here at noon. He didn't say that, right? Even though that would have been a very interesting that would have been a very obvious observation which could very well be known, right? He doesn't point that out. And he actually breaks social mores. He, an individual, a man by himself, is asking a woman by herself in that time period, a Jew and a Samaritan, for something. He's not afraid of her. He's not afraid of what maybe some of the social implications might be. and he approaches her without judgment. And he engages with her honestly and personally, drawing out her questions and leading her toward insight. This shows us that God often works gently, meeting us right in the midst of our circumstances, not wanting us to leave us there, but he meets us right where we're at in our circumstances, inviting dialogue rather than demanding immediate perfection. I just invite you maybe to reflect on the areas of your life where you feel emptiness, maybe where you feel dissatisfaction or unrest. Consider how you might bring these to the well through your prayer, through your times reading scripture, or maybe even, through times in conversation with maybe people you consider spiritual mentors, or people that you want to invite to hold you to accountability. These are important conversations to have. We want to allow Christ to meet us personally and to transform our thirst into fulfillment. And now the woman's encounter with Jesus moves from curiosity to understanding and then to transformation. Because you see, first she's intrigued. That's why I say I love questions. Questions are so good. That's why if you have an opportunity, we should always have some questions at hand. I can't stand it. I was always in the class, whenever I was in school, and the professor always asked any questions. I was always the annoying one who, right before the bell, they asked. They're getting paid. I want to make them work. I don't want to leave them questions are good. Never be afraid to ask questions, because questions mean something stirring, that the water is moving, it's not flat, right? It's a participation in that living water, so to speak. So she's intrigued. She asks the question, how can you give me water? Because he doesn't have a bucket. That's obvious, right? If you want water, you need someone to hold it in. So then she listens, and maybe there's something more than just simply this physical water. She listens and then discerns the truth, engaging her rational mind. And finally, she becomes a witness to her community. Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Which I find is the most fascinating marketing line. I mean, would that entice you? It's like one of these funny things. Here's this woman come, you gotta check out this guy. He revealed every deep dark secret about myself to me. Do I want to go see that guy too? Intriguing, isn't it? But to be fulfilled, those things need to come to the surface. We have to at least address them, bring them up. And so Lent invites us to follow the same pattern. Curiosity, reflection, transformation, leading to action. Paul reminds us in his letter to the Romans that God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit. And this love is constant and transformative. And so Lent asks us to recognize that our efforts are not merely personal. It's not just about you. We are participants in God's larger plan of redemption. I'm thinking about I've been thinking about my niece, my youngest niece. She's getting ready to celebrate her first Holy Communion and Confirmation the Saturday after Easter. So just FYI, I'll be gone after Easter to go up there because she's the last one, and if I'd have missed this one, I've missed the last two. And she's one, if I miss it, she'll remember. trying to be a good uncle. But I've been thinking about her and her preparation, and I've been appreciative. I look at my brother and his wife, and they're raising their 5 children, and it's not, and the care that they give and forming them in the faith and raising them in the faith. It's not just about them as individuals. It is too. It's about their own relationship with the Lord, about engaging with that, with His gift of salvation and everything, and trying to live that out to the fullest. But it's not just about them. But it's about the potential, about every potential person that they will encounter for the rest of their life, to whom may be transformed by their witness. Right? So if you think the power of just one person who has been transformed by Christ, how many that their witness can impact and encounter, and so on and so forth. When we wonder why the church spreads so quickly in so little time. And we need to be participants of that. We have to realize too, we're a part of that. This coming May is going to be it's already been 20 years, my maternal grandmother passed away. She was May 26, 2006. And I remember the one thing I wanted when they were my mom and my aunts and uncles were cleaning their house. I wanted this one little thing from it was this cup. There was this cup in the house, in the cupboard. It was a Thermos brand plastic cup from, I don't know, the late 60s, early 70s. But it was the only one. It didn't match anything else in her cabinets. It had this white top. It was like an oval bottom shape, like teardropped. Had a white top, and the bottom was, I think it might have been a forest green, but over the time it had faded away to some type of puke green. But it was the only one that was in there. And the thing is, my brother and I used to fight over who would get to use it every time we visited. It just became a fun, But I wanted, and so my mother grabbed it from me. But don't worry, I gave it to my brother on his 40th birthday so that he could share the story with his kids. The cup represents a lot of things to me, a few things to me. One, it makes me think of my grandparents, and the further distance I've gotten from since their passing, I've heard different stories, different things, about little things that they struggled with here and there that they really didn't share when we were growing up, and I know they were not perfect. But I'm so thankful they didn't let their imperfections prevent them from sharing the faith with us. Because I think that happens so often. If you think about it, we're vessels of this living water. But we can be so concerned with our, seeking perfection. Oh no, I can't do anything. I've got a chip here. I got a leaking hole. I can't do this. What we fail to forget, fail to remember, is that someone who is thirsty, they'll take water from any vessel, no matter how broken it is. They long to have that thirst quenched. So even if you think about, in your own life, if you see yourself as a leaking vessel, as a leaking cup, you can still bring some water to another. We can work on plugging that hole, cleaning that chip, putting that thing back together. But we have to be participants in God's larger plan of redemption, because it's not just about us. It's about everyone we encounter, to whom we're being called to share this living water with. So what living water is Christ offering you today? And how can you accept it with openness and faith? I invite you to maybe identify one act this week that brings God's living water to someone else, that you're being invited to do. Whether it's a kind word, an act of service, or even just of sharing your faith with someone searching for meaning. That's part of the evangelization. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to know, deep theology and have all the fancy language. Sometimes it's just simply, this is my why. This is the moment where Christ encountered me, transformed my life, and I can't go back. This is who I was. This is who I am now. That's all Paul ever did. And this is my why. This is why it's important to me. And I pray maybe it could be important to you too. Maybe you're being invited to do that for somebody. See, Lent challenges us not only to receive God's grace, but to extend it outward. See, notice how the Samaritan woman's transformation spreads to others. And see, discipleship is not only about the personal growth, but it's about inviting others to experience Christ's mercy. Maybe you're being invited to journey with somebody, maybe to the sacrament of reconciliation this Lent, who hasn't gone in a long time. Maybe that's the thing that opens their heart to the Lord in a deeper way. Lent calls us to live intentionally so that our encounter with God becomes a source of life and a hope for those around us. Who in your life might be thirsty for God's love and mercy? How can your words or actions help them come to the well?